Okay, blight. And it's a subject which many of us don't like to talk about, but it's an inevitability in this country. At some point you will get blight, probably some point in any given year you'll get blight. So I just thought I would have a conversation about how to make the best of a bad situation. For those of you that haven't ever encountered blight before, well, congratulations and lucky you. This is typical of blight. So you'll have it'll start by having impacts on leaves like this. You'll start to see that. These over here, this kind of thing. It will then progress to the stems and blacken them, and will eventually progress to the fruit. So you can see here that sort of brownish tinge. That's not natural until eventually it gets to this sort of stage. Just bring you in here where it destroys the crop. There are various copper-based sprays designed to hold it back and things like that, but in my experience, once blight's got a hold, it's got a hold, and that's it. So my aim here today is to take any uninfected fruit and try and ripen them at home. There's a lot of sort of wives' tales about, oh, actually it's got to be a certain size or it's got to start blushing before it will mature on the windowsills, etc. But in my experience, that's not at all true. Yeah, all I'm going to do is I'm going to look for. So, for example, this one here, you've got none of the browning extending to that point. You've got none of this unnatural blushing. So that one I would probably keep. You'll still lose about 25% of the ones that have been too close for comfort to other ones, but you know, we'll give it a go. The important thing when ripening these is to check them daily, and any that are turning blighty, dispose of immediately. So I've got quite a lot of tomatoes, over 100, so I'm going to strip my patch and bring you back. Okay, right, just to show you what I would call a marginal case. So this particular tomato plant has got blight on the leaves. However, if you look at it, there's no blight running to the core. This is your main stem. If you can avoid that, you can do what I call a halfway house measure. This is designed purely to basically maximise your extraction of fruit. I'll show you what I've done over here. So if I bring you around and show you this one, this was in the same situation. Apart from the very crown and the fruit, I take off all other leaves, because that's predominantly where blight spreads, is leaves and then into the stems. It's likely that at some point these plants will get blight, but hopefully by that point, and particularly with no leaves to shade it, some of this fruit you can see hanging here will ripen by itself, and that's particularly important when you're doing a big pick, because otherwise you end up with more fruit than you've got windowsill space, because it's all got to be single layer. Okay, and the end result for it's just one of the beds, just to show you. What I've done is I have snipped off anything that had a case of blight anywhere along it, and left what I can to ripen. As you can see, I've lost about half of the plants, which is a goodly proportion, bearing in mind that these plants the seeds weren't sown until after that frost in the middle of May. It's not bad, it's not bad. Hopefully this will now be able to at least partially ripen on the plant, because that'll save me window space, because I'm going to be intensely short of it. Because I'll show you what I've taken off that's potentially viable fruit from the plants that I've discarded. I'll show you that in a moment. Right, here you go. Here's the green tomatoes that I've taken off the plants that I discarded. There's at least as much again that were blighted that I had to fully discard. These are ones that are showing no sign of blight and will be taken home to ripen on windowsills, because, like many people, I don't like green tomato chutney, which is about the only other thing you can do with them. I'm sure there are plenty of other recipes, but frankly I want red tomatoes. You'll see here half a red tomato, the only ripe one. been dropped by a plant and half eaten, but more importantly, it has seeds inside there, viable seed. Because this is my own sort of hybrid variety, I want to keep that genetics going, although I have some from last year. I'd rather take it a further generation on. That one will be my backup. The ideal would be for one of the plants that hasn't succumbed to blight to naturally ripen, and I'll take the seeds from that, and that will be my sort of best, most productive use, and that one will be taken forward to the next generation. But if not, it gives me some backup. Now I want to talk a little bit about, when I talk about salvage, I do mean salvage. So you know, if I'm talking about this is how much I've lost, I've still got this much, and probably twice this much on the plants themselves, which, if they don't succumb to blight, should mean that I have an okay yield. However, that depends on me ripening these. So I thought I'd talk a little bit about chemistry. You'll see this one here is just starting to blush. Okay, just starting that process. That ripening process releases something called ethylene gas. Ethylene is caused by the ripening of one fruit and causes others in the same area to also ripen more quickly. It triggers the chemical change that says, right, it's time to ripen. Look, my mate's doing it, so let's all ripen. And that's actually how the supermarkets give you fresh fruit and vegetables on demand. They keep them in airtight chilled shipping containers, which are kept effectively in stasis. So they're picked green and kept in stasis, and at the point when they're ready, they release ethylene gas into those containers in specific concentrations which make them ripe, which is why if you buy something from the supermarket, they know exactly how long it's going to last and can put your best before dates on it or use by dates on it, because they know by the concentration of ethylene gas and when they started to pump it in, actually when it will be ripe and when it will have gone over for consumers. It's a natural process, so you're not talking about anything chemical here that isn't naturally occurring, although the timing and the fact that, you know, they're picking them green, you know, this is not an ideal situation, which is why I've left as much. I could have just depopulated every single one of those tomato plants, brought it all back on trays and put it in various people's windowsills to ripen. That's not as, it doesn't give as flavourful a product as you get by vine ripening, and you'll taste that if you've ever bought vine ripened vegetables, or tasted any of your own. I mean, look at tomatoes versus shop bought ones. The largest proportion of that lack of flavour is because they haven't had time to develop the chemical bases within them, because they're picked effectively long before ripe. However, we need to ripen these, and the old wives' tale of adding a banana or a banana skin does work, because bananas actually give off a significant amount of ethylene. However, any ripening fruit or vegetable will give off ethylene, and it will happen, albeit at a slower rate. Now these will probably be stacked onto 2 or 3 windowsills, and I probably will add a couple of bananas, because I want to get the windowsills cleared and the trays cleared, in case any of the stuff that's still standing actually has blight or continues to develop blight, in which case I have to take the fruit off. You know, I really don't want to, you know, this is bad enough, but imagine 3 times this amount. Trying to ripen that lot on windowsills would be nigh on impossible. So yeah, that's the chemical basis of it, and that really is how you rescue what could have been. I mean, literally, apart from that white one there, I haven't had a single tomato off the plants yet, because I planted them so late. And the harvest I have gotten, I mean, all of the plants have got no more than 2 trusses. So it's relatively minor. You know, if I'd have got those in, or if I'd have protected them against the frost, and they'd have got to 5 or 6 trusses of fruit, and we hadn't had the blight, you know, I'd have been looking at ridiculous quantities of tomatoes, but that's fine, you know. Surplus is always better than dearth. So yeah, this is what you end up with, and literally all I'll do is I'll keep them on a single layer. You don't want to provide any bruising, so you don't want to stack them up and provide too much weight. I mean, like for example that, I'd probably split that out between so that they're all single layer, You don't want bruising. Then I'll pop a couple of bananas between the crates when I put them on the windowsills and leave them to it. Take them off, check them every day. Every day, if you've got anything that's going sort of mouldy or starting to go squidgy or developing the brown patch, get rid of it immediately, because it won't be good. And as soon as it becomes ripe, take it off. You know, obviously you want ones that are ripening to stay there because they're still giving off ethylene gas. As soon as they become ripe, however, that ethylene gas stops. So what you'll probably find is that I'll pop a couple of bananas, it'll be a few days, and then some of them will start to turn, and then all of a sudden you'll get a big flush turn all at the same time. And that's fine, because these are going to be frozen and then they're going to be turned into pasta sauces and things. So yeah, so that's how you save what could be a total disaster into just a disappointing harvest. Right, I'll see you on the next one.